much once again. Let me swiftly move on to the next panelist, Mr. Ajijola, who, of course, is a specialist, and I hope he will touch on that in his 10 minutes introduction. Security, I hope he will, in his introduction, discuss aspects of that. Join me in welcoming Abdulhakeem Ajijola to the panel. Thank you.
Factoring people who will use
Silicon Valley Limited. My question goes to the Chief Executive of NCC on the base stations that have been licensed to the different zones. I think we need a map, as the way we have the gas plant. How will the cable be distributed? How will the interface be to schools, to hospitals? And what is the local engagement with those contractors? Because each region is different in climate, like what you have in Bayelsa. There is flood all over Bayelsa, and they're not going to school for the past 2 months. The next question is that you are aware that most of the cables laid down that, as you narrated, are on the highway, in our highways, and they are being cut off. And that is another way that how will you continuously do that? Bangladesh, a small country, was able to have a fiber optics plant. Nigeria is too big to carry our money on capital flight. And we're enforcing local content in the oil and gas. So a plant should be established and should be looked into. The next one again to
Thank you. I think we need to please asking your questions, go straight to your questions, please, because honestly we don't have time. So we will sincerely appreciate that's the lady. So the first question goes to EVC NCC regarding the plan, the need for a map of the distribution. I think that's just basically that question. So hopefully the EBC will take that. The second question, please.
My name is Alamaria Molaika, representing University of Cyprus. So my question is directed to Mr. Ajijola. Traveling around, I could see that most of the country are well equipped with internet and everything, which make education very easy for the students to be able to comprehend. I could see that even in the school, most of the people that are doing very, very well, extraordinary, are Nigerians. Why? Because at home, we don't have more access to internet. Even at home, overseas, we have adequate access to internet, which make us employ a lot of opportunity online.
The question, please, the question.
What is Nigerian doing to make this available here and to make better offer to Nigeria?
Thank you.
Thank you.
She's talking about access. What will we do? What will Nigeria do to ensure that there is access across, particularly in tertiary institutions? Yeah. Thank you. 3.
Thank you, moderator. My own is directly to the NCC chairman. And it's on this issue. He has mentioned a lot of masts that are deployed in the country and the cables that are laid down. But I cannot see how, with the electricity situation, what plan do they have in order to take? Because even here in Abuja, if you look at what happened just while we are here, the electric situation of the electricity, I believe all the masses of NCC are being powered by diesel generator. Do they have any plan for protecting the environment? Because the environment matters. If you can now look at this number of mass,
thank you. Thank you very much. I think
what alternative do you have in order?
Please, straight to the question. The issue of electricity. What is NCC as the regulator doing to address that? I think that's the question. Thank you very much. And I'm sure EVC will handle that. Right? Prof?
Thank you very much. I think I'll just go straight to the question.
Thank you.
And my question is to the EVC. NCC.
You are popular today, sir.
Yes, Professor. Growing up, we used to have landlines, telephone landlines in the country. And when you have a call from everywhere, you know where it's coming from. And unfortunately, even though there's a lot of progress has been made on, mobile broadband, my question really is that there's already a plan that you have indicated working on. My question is, when do we expect fiber to home? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. the Moderator, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Bala Modi. I'm representing my University Gombe State. My question straight is the security for which I am in. I want to know, in terms of social engineering, where we're looking at things like hate speeches going on tools which we're talking about, technology such as Facebook, for example.
Please.
And people are now throwing tantrums at each other. Now, what are the regulations? I want to target that question to Mr. Ajalola. You're talking about security here. So what are the regulations you have in place to actually fish out false negatives from false positives when people are actually throwing things at each other? How do you know when it's a joke? How do you know when somebody's addressing, insulting and other things? We want to know what algorithms deeply are involved to actually identify this so that we can have a smooth takeoff.
Thank you very much. And then the last, but not the least, no, I think I have a female. Yes, please, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bridget Oja. I am from National Defense College, Science and Technology Department. I have just 2 questions.
One question, please.
Okay, I overheard one of the panelists say that the broadband in the country is still at 23%. I don't think this number or this is too low. I am wondering, could this, give us the revolution we need in this digital economy? I don't think this is possible. And then I am wondering...
No, thank you. The question mainly is about broadband penetration and whether or not it will give us the desired transformation that we expect.
Thank you very much. I have 5 out of the 6 questions to answer. Just to show you there is lack of fairness. But it's okay. I will start answering the questions from the bottom up with respect to the lady who asked the last question about the penetration being too low. I agree. The National Broadband Plan specified 30% as the target by the end of this year. And that may appear to be too low, but that 22% we're talking about translates to close to 40 million Nigerians having access to broadband services, mostly high-speed internet with data services, combined. That 40 million, if you compare that population with the population of countries in sub-Saharan Africa, Niger, Burkina Faso, that will be the population of about 5 to 6 countries combined. It's quite a large figure. So whenever you hear percentages, try to translate those into real terms. So the penetration in terms of the population of Nigerians is close to 40 million. That's not a small number. There will be no meaningful progress in virtually all sectors of the economy. This is an argument that has been made speaker after speaker during this forum. Landlines. Presently, the NCC grants universal service access and access license. Okay, universal access and service license for 10 years to telecom operating companies. This license consists of basket of services. Okay? Mobile services, fixed telephony services, about 4 types of services, international gateway services. Okay, so we have been saying this to the operators in possession of this license, that preference should not only be given to mobile services. Okay, they should keep pace with the other components, contained in the service, in the license that was granted them, by ensuring they equally provide fixed telephony services. And we even encourage those operators who are willing to deploy fixed telephony services to come to the Commission for further discussions. So far, we have not received any response, to this request. So what we are going to do is to review the licensing condition by compelling operators to deploy a certain fraction of fixed telephony services. Fiber to home, as soon as the infraco licenses start deployment, remember I said there will be one point per each local government area, and the whole intention is to ensure we provide connectivity to the homes. But we're not at that stage yet. In fact, the infraco licenses have not even mobilized to site yet. We are monitoring this inactivity, and we hope, and it is in their interest to deploy by mobilizing to site immediately, because we reserve the right to revoke the licenses if we do not notice any meaningful progress being made. So we're on, and it is for that reason I told you we have in place abroad a little under, I think, 40,000 of them. Sorry, I said 60, but they are 60. We have 40,000 masts in the country at the moment, and we need about base transceiver stations. And we have been encouraging the infrastructure service providers, the owners of the base transceiver station where we have the masts, to try and look for alternative sources of power supply. We encourage them to resort to using solar power, which is in abundance in this country, and therefore by so doing overcome the challenge of erratic and unsteady electricity supply, which is not the responsibility of the NCC to address. But we have recommended alternatives to the service providers, and I think quite a few of the masts are solar driven. Of course, the business of deployment of base transceiver stations is partly based on commercial considerations. How do we deploy and make profit? And if the infrastructure service providers feel by powering their base transceiver stations using diesel, that will give them more value in terms of their investments, then we should not have any quarrel with this, even though the environment may stand to not to benefit because of the degradation of the habitat. I agree with you, but we are conscious of the need to ensure we provide alternative sources of energy in order to power base stations, and we are maybe at some stage you may consider compelling operators to resort to this friendly source of energy. Deployment map, yes, we have a map. We have a fiber map in the Commission. We know, we know the situation of fiber in this country. We know where we have the fiber gaps, because the whole that those gaps are addressed. So we are trying to do what we call targeted deployment, not to duplicate what has already been done. No, we're not going to do that. We're interested in bridging gaps. We know in this country what we have are islands of fiber, mostly in major cities of say Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja here, Kano, and so on and so forth. Those are what we call intra-fiber networks. What we are planning to do is to provide inter-fiber networks, a network that will link up the islands of fiber with each other. And that way, you have a seamless and dedicated, intra-fiber network that will be able to connect all cities, within the country, including rural areas. So we have a map in order to respond to your question. I did not, mention this in my speech, but we're not starting afresh from zero. So we'll monitor the deployments and ensure that those are done in areas without. Fiber cuts, those are some of the challenges that I failed to highlight because of, time was against me. But among the challenges confronting existing infrastructure in this country, especially broadband infrastructure, the activities of some unscrupulous citizens of the country who resort to cutting willfully fiber, or those who resort to damaging existing infrastructure. Okay? And it is for this reason that the NCC has been trying to get the National Assembly to declare the telecommunications infrastructure in this country as critical infrastructure, damage to which will attract heavy finality. And we have been trying to ensure that this bill is passed into law so that this necessary protection is given to the existing infrastructure that is already on ground. I think those are the 5 questions. I hope I have answered them very well. I'll be happy to talk to those who have more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think you've done more than enough justice to the questions.
In terms of issues of access for women students in tertiary educational institutions, I would strongly urge people from China recently, and I believe that is also for...
we don't lack on foresight. We have had the achievements that need to be achieved over the last few years. In driving digital transformation. I think what I sense as the main challenge, summing up all this, is, in my judgment, investment. That is where we are, I think, lacking. And on this count, I think we should not leave investment in the hands of government alone. I think we should explore more on the PPPs, in addition to government, philanthropies, and even ourselves. We should be a contributory party in the investment in order to ensure that we provide requisite infrastructure for unlocking Nigeria's digital asset potential. Thank you very much.
I would have loved to invite all the others, but because of lack of time, I will bring this session to a close. I sincerely, on behalf of NIDA,
energy availability and usage in homes and businesses in order to minimize operating costs and eliminate and elongate the life of solar panels, batteries, and diesel generators. Watt-Link is what? Please, ladies and gentlemen, can we just sit down and listen to and watch the pitching? It's 3 minutes each, and this is why we are actually here.
Good afternoon. My name is Ahmed Sadiq, co-founder of Watlink. We all know that maize supply is unreliable in Nigeria and many African countries. As a result, families have to resort to alternative sources, including generators, solar, and inverter. These alternative sources are often very costly and takes a lot of effort to maintain. Spend an additional $100 maintaining generators and make up to 20 power-related decisions every day. So I start generator, should I switch off the AC, what about the heater? So all these are decisions that work. And this is the problem we set out to solve. So you are supposed to live your life without thinking about power. Your installation should take care of it. Pray next year we are going to do mass production and large scale. We are looking to deploy new subscribers. And if we can do that, we'll be able to generate 4 million. Team, myself, background in electronic. I've done several related products that are in the market right now. I have Sheikh Umar, who has an MBA from consultant in New York. Basically, that's, so this is just the beginning. We are looking at the IoT marketplace, which is estimated to be worth tens of billions of dollars, and we intend to dominate that market in this part of the world. Join us to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. At this juncture, it is my pleasure to announce that lunch is served. While the VIP will take their lunch in the VIP room, we will have ours in the lively hall. Thank you very much. Lunch is served. Lunch should take 30 minutes, and then we'll converge here for the remaining sessions of the day. Thank you for your patience.
Love your way every day. Shadows grow so long before my eyes, and they're moving across the page. Suddenly the day turns into night, far away from the city. But don't, oh no, hesitate.
Please come forward. This session is on breaking poverty, increasing health, and also talk about the future of work. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to start now, and the rest can join us. I still appeal to you to come to the front and towards the center. The moderator for this session is ready to come to the podium. I have to ask you to please applaud Mr. Kashifu Inua. Thank you. Mr. Inua is serving his time at NIDA, as technical assistant to the Director General. He's done a lot of work in the area of work, enabling people build capacity to perform better. He's also had a stint in the finance sector. He'll bring this to bear as a moderator session. The panelists for the afternoon are Mr. Adekunle Ajiboye, who is visiting his country at this time and is speaking as a privileged citizen of Nigeria and I dare say Canada. Mr. Ajiboye, the CEO of Agimatics. Agimatics is a company involved in embedded systems and chip technology. He's done extensive work in big data in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, in Canada, and in Nigeria. His major assignment in the country is on e-health. He's a domain expert on e-health. He actually is a visiting professor in some universities in Canada where he tours and teaches e-health. Thank you for coming to join us this afternoon. We have from BUK, Engineer Nasir Shinkafi. Could you please join them right now on the podium? I had a brief talk with one of the elder statesmen in technology. He's actually called the Oracle. Many of you know Dr. Chris Uwaje. Has he rejoined us? Would Chris Uwaje please come to the podium? Please put your hands together for the Oracle of Nigerian IT industry. He's not quite retired. He's still running the consulting company, Connect Technologies Limited, based in Lagos. He's done so much research in software and had his own foray also in firmware and hardware. Chris Uwaje has had over 35 years experience in developing ICT in Nigeria. He was instrumental to the first IT policy for the country, approved in 2001, and stayed back to see the birth of NIDA. He's a very renowned, respected member of the industry. And thank you, sir, for coming this afternoon. And from the Nigerian Security Printing and Minting Company is Mr. Abbas Umar. He was with us earlier in the day. Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. And I'm happy to inform you that the printing company is also a key sponsor of eNigeria. He will share his experience in technology and how to eradicate poverty using technology. We do have on the panel, and I need to insert that, if you can help me insert in your program, the gentleman who is running Nigeria's foremost software company, and they have what you may consider an extremely successful enterprise resource planning software running in several banks at the moment. He has built extensive capacity locally. His company, FinTrack Software,
is what you would consider a Nigerian multinational because they operate outside Nigeria in several African countries. He's here today to be on the panel on poverty issues in creating work. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the Group Managing Director of Fintrack Software, Engineer Bimbo Abioye. Usually, the sessions are run in this format. The panelists make their presentations, short presentations, as introduced by the moderator, who would wrap up. There'll be question and answer. We would also have time to take 2 or 3 startups, those young men and women who spare their time to come here and build solutions. We need to see them. They're going to pitch to us because it's important for us to grow local capacity and bring up the young ones. So I'll ask you to please indulge the chairman as he facilitates this session. You would find it very interesting, and please do speak forthrightly and participate. Unfortunately, we won't give them all the time they need. We're going to have to be strict on time. I'll encourage you, chairman, to actually regulate the use of time so we can gain time and leave for the evening and be ready to come back tomorrow. So, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you now in the able hands of Mr. Inua. An applause again for him as he steps forward to begin the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the second session of panel discussion today. Once again, my name is Kashif Inua. I work with the National Information Technology Development Agency. We have a tremendous panel. Our panel today includes outstanding CEOs from both private and public organizations, as well as an academia from university. We also have a great audience here with us, as well as some online viewers joining us via live streaming channels. Our format today is going to take place in 2 parts. The first part is going to be discussion between us, the panelists. We will hear from you from your experience about how we can end poverty in Nigeria, the future of work, and how we can take our life back to increase our health. Then, the second part, I'm going to turn over to you, the audience, and take questions from you for our outstanding panelists to respond to. So, let me start by introducing our panelists. We have Mr. Adekunle, the CEO Agimatics Canada. Then Engineer Nasir Shinkafi from Bayero University, Kano. Dr. Chris Uwaje, CEO Connect Technology Limited. Mr. Abbas Umar Masanawa, MD CEO, Nigerian Security Printing and Minting. And lastly, but not the least, Mr. Bimbo Abio, GMD, Fintrack Software. It is a great pleasure to have you. Please, I want us to start maybe by knowing more about you. Maybe if you can give us just a 2-minute version of your story so that let us know you better and our audience should be able to ask, to direct questions to the right panelists. I don't know if you can use those mics there.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adekunle Ajiboye, CEO of Agimatics. I'm an engineer, software engineer, and also an entrepreneur. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Engineer Nasir Shankafi. I'm a telecoms consultant. I've been working with telecoms industries for the past 15 to 19 years. Currently, I'm Director of ICT, Umaru Musa Rado University, Katsina, but on a research mission at Bayero University, Kano. I'm currently, again, a resource person on national assignment at the NHIS, National Health Insurance Scheme. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Chris Owaje is the name, and you've just made a fantastic introduction, to what we have known all over the place. But significantly, I think I was quite privileged to have written in a national IT policy for Nigeria in The Guardian. And thereafter, as a president of ITAN, I followed through and was very privileged with science and technology to have pioneered the national policy for technology in Nigeria. Then, of course, under the Nigerian Computer Society, we also formed a think tank that produced the documentation for the establishment of the Federal Ministry of Information Technology, now Ministry of Communications. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Abbas Umar Masana. My profession is agricultural economics. I'm an agricultural economist, and I have a master's in business administration. I've been in the banking industry for almost close to 2 decades, and I'm now the managing director of Nigerian Security Frontier Meeting. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bimbo Abioye, a chartered accountant, veered into technology. While in the financial services industry, I worked variously as internal auditor, at some point a consultant, at some point external auditor as a public accountant, and managed technology and operations in the banking environment. Eventually left the financial services industry as divisional head operations and technology, and then went on to start Fintrack Software. And Fintrack Software today, because of a combination of subject matter expertise on the financial services terrain, we were able to develop technologies that solve problems. And we have successfully deployed solutions in the private sector. Today we have various modules of Fintrack Software in about 13 commercial banks and some other African countries. Most of the challenges in the public sector actually have been solved in the private sector. But surprisingly, we see operators in the public sector waste money on solutions that does not even work. Most of them cannot even run in the banking environment. So today we have come to see how we can share experiences and to see how we have been able to make some of these things work and how technology can better the lives of Nigerians. Thank you very much. I'm also Chairman, Policy and Strategy Committee of the Institute of Software Practitioners of Nigeria, of which I have my immediate past president, Dr. Chris Nwaje, here on the panel. So I'm pleased to be with you and to share ideas and share experiences. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for knowing you better. We've been talking about how to promote digital economy, how to create new industry using disruptive technologies and other government initiatives to promote our economic development. Now we are going to talk about how to end poverty, how to increase our health, and the future of work. Let me throw this to you as a teaser. In 1960s, America set out to end poverty. Policymakers put forth unprecedented package of legislation funding poverty programs and empowering the poor with ineffectual job-related education and training. However, this produced little change. All efforts to end poverty through training and job-related have proved inconsequential. Only one thing worked for the Americans to end poverty, and that was the work itself. The centerpiece of welfare reform in 1996. When I was young, there is this conventional wisdom. Go to school, read hard, come out with flying colors, you will succeed in life. Today in Nigeria, every year we produce between 2.5 million to 3 million job seekers. So, what is your take on this? How can we use this to end poverty in Nigeria? I don't know. We have people from the banking sector. Maybe I should start from Mr. Abbas. What is your take on this, please?
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. I think, as you said, ending poverty in Nigeria is to change the mindset of the people, their orientation. We need to orientate ourselves. As we say, every year, a lot of millions of people have been, graduates have been coming out from the university without nothing to do, no white-collar job. Even when we're young, the orientation is, of course, as you said, you read very well with flying colors, you come out, you get ready, you get job ready for you. There are some of our seniors that they come out of school, they have 5, 6 jobs waiting for them, just for them to choose which one to take. Of course, the narratives have changed completely different, and the trajectory is now different. A lot of, every year, graduates are coming out of school and nothing to do. And I think the way the developed nations move forward, we also need to develop, to move forward. I was in Japan last year. We visited a machine manufacturing company called Komori. And I was talking to the founder and the owner of Komori, who incidentally last year he was 86 years old. And he was running a company of about $11 billion. And of course, I decided to engage him in discussion in the dinner we had with him after the factory visit. And he was telling me that in Japan, almost less than 14% of the population work for the government. What it means is about 86% of the people. In fact, he actually said it's only if you are not well-to-do that you work for the government. But anybody who is well-to-do, who is from good background, doesn't work for the government. And I think this is the reverse is the case in Nigeria. From the children of well-to-do, even not so well to do. Everybody wants to go to school to read and come and get a job. And I think things have remarkably changed. So we need to change their orientation, we need to change the mindset of our young guys. Right? That job is no longer available. We have a population of 200 million in Nigeria today. So there is no way you can depend on government, and there is no way that the government can cater for everybody that comes out of school. So it is time for us to start thinking what we need to do so that people come out and be on their own. There are a lot of jobs that you can be able to do, skill youths and women empowerment program, skill acquisition programs, that people who government can really engage the youth so that all these guys can go off the job market. This must be a deliberate government policy. And I believe if government come up with a deliberate policy, it is really possible actually to take most of these guys off the job market. Thank you.
Yeah, I will connect with my colleague on something fundamental that he said. You know, that we have to be reorientated. And that is both from the rulers and the ruled. Now, Nigeria rank amongst the most poorest nations of the world. The truth of it is that if another index is taken, if we are ranking the most foolish nations in the world, sincerely Nigeria should be on the lead. How do we have an orientation that continually enrich foreign nations in all across various sectors of the economy? We continually enrich foreign nations and our economy is impoverished. We are not a productive nation. We are, so there's no job for the graduating students to do, because every organizations today, and that is talking in the area of software, which I operate, my heart bleeds when I see government, private sector operatives spend several millions and hundreds of millions of naira on solutions that will not work for them. And after spending that work, that money, they will now begin to look inward, then they will find us, and then we will get the job done. But why do we have a culture that prefers something foreign than what we have locally, even when what we have locally is superior sometimes? Okay, so that culture have to change. And in the talking eNigeria, and talking about digitization and what have you, various speakers earlier in the day have talked about the various components of the digital economy, from the infrastructure to internet services to software solutions and what have you that are required. Concerted effort must be made to ensure that investment in these digitization processes is, government and private sector operatives actually look inward. When we begin to do this, we will discover that the economy will become productive again. I was telling somebody recently that what we have done already at Fintrack Software, solutions that we have developed already, this is not about, oh, let's give them money to do research. Solutions are already developed. If we are very well patronized, we can have more than 5,000 employees, Power Nigeria, Power Africa, technologically. And that is just one company. And when you have that replicated everywhere, people will be choosing which work to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Engineer Nasser, could you share with us what are you doing in the academia to catch up with reality? It's university product and what is happening in the industry. Please, could you share with us what are you doing to catch up with the reality?
Okay, thank you very much for throwing that question. However, I will try to do justice to it, but I think I may not be in a very good position to answer that when some of my professors are sitting right ahead of me. However, I can tell you very categorical that what we observed in recent times is that, the way the pedagogy used in the academia, we have what we call the hard skills, and there are aspects of soft skills which are missing. You wouldn't be able to teach young ones only the hard skills and expect them to excel. There are issues of soft skills that are very critical in development. If you wish to assist and help the young ones and even the elderly ones, you need to show them the aspect of soft skills. What I mean here is that those of us that appears to be successful must volunteer to become what we call mentors. I'm a volunteer mentor for like 5 years, and I think part of the mentoring program which I have done is part of the last administration of the UN, for which I mentored about 10 UN awardees, and some of them had got like 10 million, and today they are able to, have a very good segment of the market, which they are driving. That is an indication that it is possible with mentoring, with introduction of soft skills that can be transferred, to the young ones and young entrepreneurs. Definitely, this can be possible. So, in the academia, if you remember, in like a talent induction for their own resources, then they carry the talent outside the generate money and then bring back the money home. That's why when you see an Indian, even in the United States, he would be using his own kind of dress. He wouldn't be using the foreign dress. Anyway, that is a cultural thing. But when you look at the Chinese, instead of them teaching just talent and remain silent, they introduce aspect of entrepreneurship. So they generate money internally, and then they export what they produce to the outside market. And Nigeria, we have the market that can adopt that. Let me shed more light, because in my presentation, I made it very clear. The digital economy or the digital market in Nigeria, which sprang somewhere around 2012, as of June 2018, it was worth $2 billion. However, it is projected to be $10 billion by 2020. That is something that we really need to look at. How can we leverage on existing technology, on the disruptive technology, to harness this very large market? I think really there is potential, and I think we can do it, but the only thing is that, we need to train our youth the soft skills required. I'll give you 3 P's, which is required for any entrepreneur. Number 1, that entrepreneur must be very patient. You can't succeed overnight. You must be persistent, meaning you have to make mistakes. Make mistakes and try again until you succeed. And then the third one is the passion. You must be passionate on what you're doing. If you're not passionate on what you're doing, poverty will always be waiting for you. So for me, poverty is very relative. It depends on how you want to put it, but you can end it if you really apply the right tool for the right place. I think I will add more.
Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Chris, considering Americans' experience and your experience in policy making, what do you think we need to do to end poverty in Nigeria?
To my presentation, while I was...
I don't think we have time for presentation. Please just share with us briefly. Okay, if you can finish it in 5 minutes, we can try.
Thank you. If the presentation is here, but before it comes, let me appreciate the DG for mounting sort of monumental, I would say, conference that is one could adjudicate as a world class. And I want to appreciate that this type of exhibition should be not just in Nigeria, should be ECOWAS-based, so that if we want to take over the African market, we need to swallow the small ECOWAS, the regional base, for them to come and see as a stepping stone to moving forward. Yeah. Thank you. So if the presentation is here, having said that, my name is Chris Uwaja. I'm speaking to this concept of breaking poverty. And I want to probably begin with the conceptual and definitional issues. There have been some misplacement and misconception about what poverty is and what it is not. For me, poverty is about, or not about the poverty in the pocket, that you have money or not. It's about poverty, education poverty, information poverty, environmental poverty, and of course, durability poverty, as my friend has said, the persistence to hope that things could be better. So I will continue to now do my paper if it will be ready. The critical concerns for poverty and the challenges I want to believe are now showing its face with the destructive technologies. But when we look at it within that ecosystem, we need to ask ourselves, what about the content of technophobia in Africa, not just in Nigeria? The fear of technology, because, of course, it's more or less an induced foreign culture. We need to take that technophobia very seriously, because a small example, your car breaks down because you didn't read the manual and you call the mechanic. Your electricity wire goes off because you didn't read the manual, of course you call the electrician. There are things you can do yourself, and teaching yourself to do a lot of things so that you are not really afraid of technology. But then that could be turned into opportunity and advantage, because the miniaturized industry is still there waiting for us. We have not attested the miniaturized concept of inducting, possibly making sure that our kids can learn with technological nanoscale. What we do, our kids are learning with sand and stone. Their counterpart over there are learning with miniaturized, do-it-yourself concept. When competition comes, of course, one becomes the inventor, one becomes the consumer. And we need to turn this around. So there are multi-billion industry waiting for us, which you can use local materials to miniaturize the concept of what we can do. So we are talking about the technology of things, and of course, look at the challenges to overcome. These are the templates that we are given. Why the sudden surge in innovation? Of course, we'll see that the issue of the sudden surge in innovation is incurred by the world population today, which is ranging for 7.4 billion people. And Nigeria, of course, following suit with babies, and of course, accountable for about 200 billion. In 2050, we are told that we're going to be the fourth largest country, population country in the world, with about 400 billion. So how do you now attach education, transportation, conceptualization, environment, and all what's not? So those are things that we are looking at. And if you look at probably if the presentation were to be there, if you look at what I'm seeing here, the challenges to overcome, about poverty, disruptive knowledge, IP, and wealth crisis. There is a crisis out there where, of course, you have almost about 20% of the richest environment in the world and resources belong to just about 4% of the population of the world. And you have the second 20% belonging to 82.7% of the population of the world, which of course that is the tripod of the poverty. The third 20% belongs to just 2.3 people of the world in resources. That's what they call the champagne glass economics distribution of the world. And that's what you're seeing here. And if you look at that, automatically you can induce that it's only when we get into the concept of innovation, disruptive technologies, that we can really, get this thing to be working. action, in fact, for all universities to convert a space for e-government academy where government automation should be taught, and make sure that the politicians we are going to have 10 years from now will be digital governance people. So the solutions are there. You can look at it on the slide. There's idea, instruction, expertise, applications, and market diversity. To round up, looking at the AI, the weaponization of the cyberspace, those are the security issues. But the initiatives for action, these are the template you gave to us there. All right? And we say to redefine local content solutions advocacy as Nigerian digital strategy for wealth creation. That must be done. There are a lot of wealth there, as I said, in that ecosystem. How do you dig them out? I think that is the challenge. Promotion and adoption of bottom-up approach ICT capacity building, as we've said. For SME, SMEs should have an institutional where we go and retune them and make sure that this is done. So we need to facilitate these issues, and that over 90% of SMEs have their promotional product for marketing also local and abroad. I think those are some of those issues that we've done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for the excellent presentation. Yeah, Mr. Adekule, do you have presentation slide to present, or you want it to be conversational? Okay, come over. You have 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon once again. Standing on existing protocol, referencing Dr. Pantami. It's nice to see you again. Thank you. We were told that we wanted to look at breaking poverty, increasing health, and the future of work. How can we help small businesses to sell their goods in logistics, reaching market, financial systems, and skill building? The first thing I want to point out, if you look at Nigeria, micro, small, medium enterprises account for more than 70% of the formal economy and almost more than 90% of the informal economy. So, in other words, if we can address them, then we will get to the roots of poverty in Nigeria. Don't we all know a businessman? I remember growing up, everyone we met, what does your dad do? He's a businessman. What does your mom do? She's a businesswoman. So it's ingrained. It's part of our DNA in Nigeria. For us in Canada, micro, small, medium enterprises account for more than 54% of the GDP. So they are a significant part of the economy, and we should pay attention to them. We look at some of the problems facing micro, small, medium enterprises: inventory and logistics, business operations and succession planning, working capital and financial inclusion, access to markets and clients, the future of work, health and well-being of the businessman, and then breaking poverty. How do we solve these challenges? We've heard of Hello Food. Now you can have your food delivered. So we can extend such apps, making use of modernized Okadas to make and succession planning. Why does Dangote Industries exist at the moment and we don't have any trace of Abiola Industries? That we can solve with capacity building and transitional management planning. We're looking at working capital and financial inclusion. The current government has made some effort with the trader money, the N-Power. Such efforts should be scaled up. We're looking at access to markets and clients, and we could look at digital marketplaces and platforms. We're looking at the future of work. The future of work now and in the near future is collaboration. Collaboration across digital platforms. We should work to ensure that happens. The well-being of the Nigerian businessman, he needs affordable and accessible healthcare. Everything should be done to make sure that that happens. Breaking poverty. Depending on which statistics you want to look at, over 60 to 70% of Nigerians are what we can call in poverty. Like Dr. Waje said, it could be data poverty. There are many aspects of poverty that we can look at, but poverty is prevalent to us in Nigeria. So what are the challenges to overcome for us? Identification management is a big one. It was good to hear Engineer Aziz was here earlier on today talking about NIMSI. It's good to see that NIMSI took our recommendation that the NIM should form the core of identity management in Nigeria. So identity management is a big issue. Infrastructure, we don't need to emphasize that, we all know that. The enabling environment and stable macroeconomic policies, very, very important for us. Capacity building, we're all aware how crucial that is. Transforming from startup to scale up to growth stage and to unicorns. How can we ensure that can happen for us in Nigeria? So suggested initiatives and actions. If you will look at the challenges I identified, the first three are the responsibility of the government. The government needs to step up to ensure that those challenges are mitigated. Stakeholders like ISPON, the Computer Society of Nigeria, in other words, can also step up and play their roles in ensuring that these challenges are resolved. NIDA, as an agency, and also through its specialized agency of the OIIE, can also step up some efforts to mitigate these challenges. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. With this, we have come to the end of the first part of this session. Now, the second session, because of the time, maybe we might take only 3 or 4 questions from the audience. Please, if you have any questions for our great panelists, you can raise your hand and ask your questions. Okay, where are the ushers, please? Can you take mic to him? Please say your name and be brief. Go straight to your questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rabiu Muhammad. My question goes to Mr. Masana, sorry. You said the job available for the youth after school are rare in the state or federal level of the government. So what is the government doing in order to assist those youths to be on their own after school? Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Masana, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for your question. As I said earlier on, the government cannot do it alone. But again, I think that there are a lot of government initiatives in trying to see how we can be able to move people away from the white-collar jobs, deliberate government policies. Like the skill acquisition centers, we have a lot of skill acquisition centers across the state of the Federation, and this one they are teaching graduates, young graduates, even those also graduate, on how they can be able to use skills, to use their initiatives, because we're not talking about even the capital resources, the resources, we're not talking about resources. In terms of how about the issue of intelligence, how will you be able to use your intelligence as somebody who is fresh from school to see how can be able to depend on yourself without necessarily doing anything for the government. How government can assist is through the issue of empowering the startups. There are a lot of small-scale industries that are startups that you have to create enabling environment. Government should create enabling environment whereby they can be able to assist those startups so they can be able to start on their own. Now, one of the key issues to do with the government enabling environment is just like this example of the Anko Bora scheme. Because a lot of campaign by the government now, people should go back to farm. And this program of Anko Bora is a success. And this is one of the areas that government makes sure that people go back to farm, providing some small farm implements, fertilizer, and even some small little capital with little or no interest, so that people can be able to start on their own. Now, again, the issue of tax exception, we have the NIPP, Investment Promotion Council of Nigeria, which is also a government institution. They are doing a lot to see how they can be able to create an enabling environment so that graduates, or even those that are not graduates that come out from school, they can be able to start on their own. But I believe it's not only for the government to do, because government cannot do it all. We have a lot of well-to-do individuals that have been doing a lot on issue of youth and women empowerment. They have been able to go to their locality to see how they can be able to identify those people initiatives, and they can be able to give them small little capital for them to start on their own. So these are the areas that I believe if we can be able to continue, there will be a lot of discouragement from people coming out from school to believe that they will spend 6, 7 years looking for a job to do. They can actually start on their own. The Empower program of the government is also, I believe, another area within which government is providing enabling environment for people to start on their own. Small-scale industries, I mean, what the government do, especially now that, it's so easy for you as a startup to get a loan straight coming from school, from a bank. You have to have a collateral, or you must have a track record. You must see a track record in your account, you must have a turnover. I think these are the things that government needs to discourage. And I think government is doing a lot. There is the Bank of Agriculture, there is the Nexim Bank, there are other institutions, government institutions that actually provide the kind of support for people who have initiatives so that they can be able to start life on their own. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It seems like we are learning from the Americans' experience. The only way to end poverty is to create work, not go to school, come out with flying colors and start looking for a job. So it's better you create the work by yourself. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, please go ahead. Your name, and please go straight to the point.
Good afternoon. My name is Fadila Jima. I have a question for Engineer Nasir. In developed nations, the industry dictates the curriculum, the academic curriculum. This way, we are able to produce graduates that are resourceful and productive and trendy. In Nigeria, there is a wide gap between the industry and the academias. How can we close this gap so that we can help our new generations? Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Engineer.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very good question. Let me begin by telling you that I'm part of the Council Committee of Nigerian Society of Engineers, and I'm the subcommittee chairman responsible for training and professional development. What we did recently was we observed that for our engineers to be very effective and come out as entrepreneurs, we needed to collaborate. So from the Communication Research Group in Bayero University, Kano specifically, we engaged MTN, 9Mobile, Airtel, and some of the national mobile operators. We have some of their infrastructure within the university which we use as a lab. So I think it's about initiative. The initiative should come either from the academic staff or from the students. But then the atmosphere is very ripe. It is very possible to do it. When you have initiative, organizations like NIDA, NCC, and some of the donor organizations are willing to give out funds for research, to encourage research. It depends on your own initiative. So for me, I think really largely it is an attitude issue coming from the students and sometimes from some of the staff. If you are interested in what you're doing and you're passionate, it's very easy for you to do it. Our concern, as I said earlier, is through mentorship, you'll be able to achieve whatever you want to achieve. For us, we don't see any bottleneck. What we believe is that the potentials of Nigerian youth is very, very, very ripe and is very good. So we need to harness that potential. If you were born in India, you would be just like an Indian. If you were born in China, you will be just like a Chinese. So being in Nigeria doesn't reduce anything off your head. The most important thing is, sit down, think twice. You can be very competitive. There is nothing that is impossible. We don't see impossibility really. So the most important thing is we change our attitude. The entrepreneurs that we are bringing today, some of them, they haven't even finished their school, really. Some of them, they learn it on their own. And some of them are coming up with these startups. So ending poverty, getting the academia straight, getting the entrepreneurs straight is all about your own initiative. So think straight, get it ready, have the potential, believe in yourself that this is possible, that you can do it. There is nothing that is impossible. You can do it. So this is what I think, and I want to assure and encourage all of us, please understand that as mentors, because once you are around by this age, you should be mentoring the younger ones. Remember, we have 6 P's, which I'm going to share with you. I promise to say it before you close. 5 of them are positive. Try to do them and try to encourage even your children to do them very well. This is a very good tool to train your younger ones. Number 1, respect time. That's punctuality. Your 8 o'clock should be 8 o'clock. Position yourself very well such that you are always at the center stage. Don't stay at the back. Don't run away from trouble. Face it. When there is a risk, they say confront it in project management. So confront something no matter how hard it becomes. Be precise. Use the right tool for the right job. Be patient. Persevere. These are the 5 P's that you must have to succeed, whether for learning, whether for business, whether as an entrepreneur or whatever you're doing in life. Then the last one, which is negative, in my presentation it is red and is blinking, is procrastination. Never you get to procrastinating. If you must do something now, please do it immediately. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you all believe with me it's a high time we need to refill our education system. The gap between the schools and industry is very wide. At NIDA, we are working on some initiatives to strengthen our ecosystems where we can have a very strong relationship between the industry, universities, the entrepreneurship, and venture capitals. And very soon you start seeing the result of the initiative. Thank you. Okay, over to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Abdul Salam Gital from ATBU Bauchi. I want to throw this question to all the members of the high table. How can we be out of poverty while even the carpet you are putting your foot on it is from the foreign country? Because how can we remove poverty out of the country while the leather seat you are on it is from outside the country? The wooden small stool by you, it's made up from another country. Even your clothes is from another country. The banner we are using is from another country. The camera we are using is from another country. The microphone I'm using is from another country. I believe something has to be done from the grassroots of what we are consuming. If you look at this venue, there are a lot of things. None of it is a product of this country. Then poverty must leave. What do you think can be done in order to avoid this, so that even if it will take us, anybody that wants to import carpet, the company should reside in Nigeria and be producing their carpet, then we will be consuming. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gital. And that's the last questions we are going to take. At this juncture, I will give all our panelists 1 minute for your remarks. You can maybe address his questions as well. Thank you. Let me start with Mr. Bimbo.
Thank you, my brother. That actually connect with what I was saying earlier. there must be a reorientation of everyone. You know, that there is just, it's just not sustainable. And there's no amount of even digital economy we're talking about. If everything is still powered from overseas, for example, today, DSTV, I don't know what is, I think the FISAT technology they are using, is it Niche Concert? There should be a regulation to enforce it. Okay? So some of these things, until we begin to engage what our people have produced, there is no incentive to produce. And then, in fact, there is nothing to produce. And so that's just, government must come up with deliberate policies and be ready to implement it. You know, implementation is always the issue. For example, local content executive orders came out. I don't know. We are in the industry. I've not seen any government, projects. They say, okay, oh yeah, let's deploy your solutions. And we have things that are better than all of these things. So these are some of the issues. Now today, I have about 100 software engineers. And I'm saying that if we have an environment that is sane, we can have more than 5,000 people. So government must come up with deliberate policies. For example, in my subsector, there should be software import tax. If you must import that software from outside the country, it means you are so much rich, then you pay 50% tax. When I sell software in Ghana, Ghana will charge the client about 35% tax to discourage them from buying from outside the country. Okay? So all of these things, we just have to actually be serious about them. You know, at the moment, we are just saying them, we are not saying it. Okay, so there must be a deliberate policy to support local businesses and patronize their services. That is when there can be improvement in these products, research and development. And in Nigeria, we have there's one.
Thank you. Mr. Abbas, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, moderator. I just want to follow the line of the last panelist. You see, I believe government alone cannot do it. I talk about cultural orientation from the grassroots. That must be changed in our attitude. I think that it should be attitudinal change. It's very key, it's very important. Because that perception that we always have that buying foreign goods is better than patronizing the local content, we need to change. And it's not the government alone that will do it. It's all of us. Now, let me give you an example. When there was a ban on 41 items, government banned 41 items, there was a lot of cry. Those 41 items were banned so that it would encourage the local content, so that people would be forced to be able to manufacture those items home. Because before the government banned those 41 items, they believe we have the capacity as a nation to manufacture those 41 items in Nigeria. A typical example, a toothpick. You import toothpick, you import eggs, common eggs laid by poultry, import it. There's so many things that you import. I mean, it's sad. It's a very sad narrative as a nation of where we are as it is now, with a population of over 200 million. God has done everything for Nigeria. There is nothing basically that we don't have. The resources, the intellect, the people, what have you. There's something that we don't have. But it's just for us to agree to change. You know, change is the most difficult aspect of human endeavor, but it's the most constant thing.
Thank you, Mr. Abbas. Dr. Chris, please, your closing remark.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think we're all saying the same thing. The issue is now, what strategy do we apply that will be most effective? Now, the gentleman that raised the question is passionate, but does he know why this attitudinal aspect, has imbibed in us? The most critical aspect that has caused this very unpalatable situation most of those goods that we are even buying, that say from foreign, they are manufactured for class citizens in their country, and they are not. You must attest to your media and all what's not is there. It's a dependency. So you need to fight from that angle. That's my own. If you don't see this television and widescreen, how it is and the appeal, you wouldn't say, I want to buy it, right?
Thank you, Dr. Chris. Engineer Nasser, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. What I would like to say is the support from the government, which they normally get. I'll give you an example. While the NIMC concentrate on NIDA focuses more on IT. NCC more on lawful interception to ensure that our communication medium is secured. Power Galaxy such that they become the owner of our infrastructure. The country 100%, such that we can monitor what comes into the country and what goes out. Immensely all our problems, because whoever comes, investor would want to be secured, and even our own entrepreneurs, they would want them they use in transaction, especially on the aspect of cryptocurrency.
Thank you, Engineer Abbas. Mr. Adekunle, please, your closing remark.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, DG Pantami. We will advocate that buy local be enshrined and enforced in Nigeria. Now, government is the largest client. Government should be the first client. We would advocate that we have what we call a Buy in Nigeria fund to be administered by NIDA. Government should be the first client of locally produced software and other products. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, our great panelists and our audience. We have come to the end of this session.
Please, the photographers will take a group photograph of the panelists. Can you please just come to the front so that you have a group photograph? And thank you very much to this panel for doing a wonderful job. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your patience. But then again, we are discussing one of the most important issues of advancement in today's world. We thank you for being patient and for staying with us till this time. Let me quickly recognize the presence of the MD, CEO, Galaxy Backbone, Mr. Yusuf Kazaure. You are welcome, sir. We appreciate your presence here with us. The last session for the day is themed Using Data to Improve Government Administration and Services. Nations must be data rich before becoming digitally developed. How might we incentivize the creation and use of big data by the local ecosystem, consisting of startups, citizens, developers, entrepreneurs, and the academia to create a virtuous circle of innovations? How can open data be used to foster transparency and economic development? Ladies and gentlemen, to moderate this panel is the President, Nigeria Computer Society, Professor Ganiu Adeshola Aderomu. Professor, sir. You're welcome, sir. And on the panel, we have Dr. Abdullahi Isa, Aalborg University, Copenhagen, Denmark. Please let us welcome our panelists in a warm manner. You're welcome, sir. Dr. Abdullahi Isa is actually from the Hassan Usman Katsina Polytechnic. And on that panel, we have Mr. Ben Ewa. Mr. Ewa is a consultant with the Corporate Planning and Strategy Department of the agency. Mr. Ben Ewa, you are welcome. Also on this panel is Dr. Sani Abba. Dr. Sani Abba is from ATBU Bauchi. Dr. Sani Abba, you are welcome, sir. Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. You're welcome, sir. And of course, we have the President and CEO, Medallion Communications Limited, Lagos, Mr. Ikechukwu Nnamani. Mr. Ikechukwu Nnamani, you are welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, let me respectfully hand over the mic to the moderator, Professor Ganiu Adeshola Aderomu, President, Nigeria Computer Society. Sir, I don't know who is fit to moderate you, but since I have the job, the unpleasant job of moderating my superiors, I would like to say I have been directed to inform you that we should keep the session to 40 minutes, within 40 minutes. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. The DG of NITA and my respected colleagues in the IT industry. Once again, good evening. And my job has been very easy now because of the time that has been reduced. You will all agree and believe with me that for you to promote digital economy, you need to plan. And for you to plan, you need data. Without data, there's no way you can plan. And without planning, I don't think you can achieve any result. So I'm happy that this session is part of what we are discussing. And I believe that by the time we end this session, we should come up with some recommendations that can assist us to achieve the digital economy. In order not to waste our time, I think we just go straight to the point. We have 40 minutes to spend, and we are just 4. So maybe what we'll do is we limit ourselves to 7 minutes, and then the remaining time will be for questions and the closing remarks. 7 minutes per presenter, and then whatever you want to say after, by the time you want to do your closing remark, we can't. So we just start. So let me just invite Dr. Abdullahi Isa to give your view with respect to this topic. using data to improve government administration and services. Thank you. 7 minutes. Your time starts now.
All protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Abdullahi Isa from Hassan Usman Katsina Polytechnic. I have a PhD in Information and Communication Technology from Aalborg University, Copenhagen, Denmark, and I have been teaching ICT courses for almost 22 years at the Polytechnic level. Data is very, very important and crucial to our day-to-day living. If you cast your eyes on any object or anything you see, it is the outcome of data. Without data, any progress, any development, any achievement, any mission, any vision could not be attainable, could not be realizable. We cannot actualize our aims, goals, and objectives. Data is very, very important. We are in the era of Internet of Things. We are in the era of of Things. We are in the era of digital society. And the input, the resources for advancement of life, all aspects of life, be it healthcare, education, entrepreneurship, business, innovation, development, it all rests on accurate, valid, reliable, up-to-date, and accurate and rich data. Without data, Nigeria may not achieve the progress we are aiming at in this digital and global world. We may be going like what Michael Jackson is doing in his backsliding instead of going forward and progressively. There is no country in Nigeria where data is abused, where data is breached, where data is not given the recognition it deserves than in Nigeria. Most of these foreign countries, they come to Nigeria, they watch our children in the playground, they take a video of them, maybe building a mud house or an architectural kind of thing. They go back to their country and develop a sketch and bring them back as toy or another product, a substandard product for us to buy, and we'll be ready to purchase that product. So we are not giving, we are not handling, we are not treating data the way data is supposed to be handled. There are 4 principles or 5 principles or attributes of data. And if you look at it, each one of these principles of data is breached. Data entry, data storage, data processing, data dissemination, and data sharing and communication. There is government data, there is also civil data. Unless these two are matched, immigration, identity management, organizations, Bureau of Statistics, Population Commission, they all have data. These data are government data. But because nowadays, citizens of Nigeria are becoming more smarter than ever before in life, and they are having a smarter advisor or assistants in their pockets. We all have smartphones with us, and we have the wisdom, the Google. Whatever they want, whatever information they need, they just Google it. In other words, our society is becoming more smarter and smarter and smarter. Unfortunately, instead of the stakeholders to identify this data that is coming from citizens, not from the government, and try to match, to integrate, to harmonize this data in such a way that administrative functions like planning, coordinating, controlling, directing, and delivery of essential services to the citizens, we are not ready to do that. Unless these two are harmonized, the government data and the data that is coming from social group, on social media, from families, from clubs,
from forums, from associations. Unless these data are married together, we may not have the quality of data we want for decision making, for policy formulation, and for advancement in this digital world. Therefore, there is a need for our society. That is why now I am saluting NITDA and the boss of NITDA for this innovative, innovative achievement, because this is an achievement. We have to be conscious of the importance and role of data. Data is gold. Data is an asset. Unless this asset is identified from the grassroots, if we rely on the government data alone, we may not be able to plan appropriately. We may not be able to coordinate, to direct, and to deliver the essential services the society is expecting as a responsibility of the government to see that the society is advancing in terms of innovation, in terms of entrepreneurship. The challenges we are facing now is the effective utilization of data, both from a government side and the citizen side. Unless the citizens' data is now augmented, harmonized with that of the government, then we continue to be misleading ourselves. We are making policies, but the policies are not making any significant impact on the society. And we want to develop, we want to progress, whereas the issue lies on the necessary input that is necessary to engineer, to catalyze, and to move our nation ahead. Last session, there was an issue of poverty. There was an issue of foreign goods dominating our markets. All this is related. If you try to synthesize and analyze the issues, you see that it's related to lack of harmonization and articulation of necessary data that we are supposed to bring to the citizens of Nigeria. Therefore, it is paramount for the nation and administrators and our leaders to recognize that there is a need to establish an agency. We may call it Citizen Data Agency that will be responsible for collecting data right from the grassroots level, just like a marketer. A marketer starts from the consumer, the customer. He gets into the field and try to not just sit on the table and say that, well, I can read this data and try to produce a product or a service and feed the market. The modern marketing concept is saying that we should start from the consumer as a grassroots. So the administrative functions of the government should now
We want to thank you for that brief presentation. Let me just say that we should stick to the time. I want to advise that once we come to the podium, let us summarize the key aspect of this, and then we can listen to questions from our colleagues, because the time is no more there for us. And I want to seize this opportunity to invite Miriam Babade to join the panelists on the high table. She's replacing Dr. Amina Sambo. Please join the panelists on the high table. So I'm sorry. So we won't be able to use the 40 minutes. I based my calculation on 4 panelists. Now the 5th one is joining. So I create your indulgence. We are going to spend extra 5 minutes. So we are spending 45 minutes as against 40 minutes. I hope this one is approved. So let me quickly invite the second presenter, Bernard Ewa, the consultant corporate planning and strategy NIFTA. for your presentation. 7 minutes. Once your 7 minutes is up, I will stop you automatically.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your time starts now.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll do 6 minutes. So there are a number of reasons why we think that we should improve the use of data in the delivery of public services. Apart from improving decision-making process, it also helps to, open up business to non-state agents in terms of those who provide services. And more importantly, it has the capacity to absorb much of the underutilized manpower that is not employable at this time. So if you look around us, on a daily basis, we tend to come across government offices that are struggling to provide services to their customers. This morning I was chatting with somebody from the Nigeria Airport Authority, and she says she wants to, the organization wants to improve services to their customers. And she told me about how they started in Lagos and were able to conclude the transaction overseas without moving. And I asked her a simple question: if you want to improve your services, who do you need to know better? She said the customers. And what do you need to know about your customers? It's okay, fine. What do you need to know about your customers? You need to know where they are. So you need to know how they interact, how they fly, what their preferences and so on, right? So the transactional data that every organization produces can be used to improve their delivery process or even performance. If you could go down to virtually all the MDAs, or FCTA. We as citizens, residents in Abuja, we are producing data on a daily basis, right? From our commute to work and home, to recreational places, we produce data. This data can be useful to FCTA subsidiaries, Transportation Secretariat or Education Secretariat, and so on, right? And that's how we, or public services, can prime themselves to utilize the data that is available to them, both in terms of from the internal processes that they run or the citizens are around them. But what is missing right now? A lot of organizations, but particularly I'm referring to public sector organizations, lack that digital strategy. Digital strategy to refocus on how to use data that is available around them, just as what I just described. They also lack the business model platform where they can transform their organizations into business platforms. And then thirdly, there's also a lack of business ecosystems that could have been able to use that data to create a value addition for these organizations. Let me simplify this. So an organization like Uber is built to utilize a platform, Google Maps, right? So what has it done? It has created APIs that tap into an existing platform. So what do businesses, government businesses in Nigeria need to do? We can leverage some of these existing platforms, to create the kind of business model platforms that they need, to offer better service, to better utilize the data that I referred to earlier on, whether it's data from citizens or transactional data, to improve services. That way they'll be able to tailor their services to the consumers. But one thing I'd like to leave this podium with is to say that as a country, we can ignite the move towards an API economy by deliberately creating digital public goods, such as platforms that government organizations, the business ecosystems can utilize and create APIs to offer value to government services. That is a quick way that we can use. For example, Nigeria is among the top 10 countries in the world when it comes to mobile data connections. That's because of the phenomenal rise or increase we've experienced in the last decade, from the rollout of GSM. That data can be useful in so many ways, right? The fact that you can better understand individual commute from home to work, you can develop mobility statistics that is useful in, for instance, Federal Road Safety Corps, right, for traffic management and so on. And such data can also give us what I will refer to as de facto population. For instance, the MPOPC data we have, that's the Nigerian National Population Commission's data, can only tell us so much because it is taken or generated during intervals. But if you take a city like Abuja that has had over 140% increase in its population over the last 10 years, there's no way you can use data that you have generated from MPOPC, for planning. So Minister of Power and Mr. Fashola, for instance, can never be able to get it right when it comes to energy distribution in a densely populated district like we say, because you don't have the kind of data. But if you use de facto population derived from big data analytics, you can tell daytime population in Abuja to nighttime population or over a time series. And that's where you can improve decision making in these organizations. Thank you very much.
Once again, I want to thank you for that presentation. At least you spend your 6 minutes. Thank you. The next speaker. Let me invite Dr. Sonny Abba to give your presentation. 7 minutes. But I'll be happy if we can do it 6 minutes.
Okay. So the PowerPoint is... Yeah, I gave it to them. Okay. So already... Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Director General, in person of Dr. Isa Ali Fantami, my Vice Chancellor of ATB University, my respected professors here present, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Sani Abba from ATB University. I'm here to present a topic promoting a digital economy in the era of emerging technologies through effective regulations. The main theme is using citizen data to improve government administration and services. Nations like Nigeria must be data rich before becoming digitally developed. So what must be done in order this to happen? Now, let us discuss about big data. We need to have an understanding of what a big data is and how can we harness the huge amount of data that is coming from different sectors of our economy to make it a big data so that the government can draw conclusions so that it can help the administrators in carrying out a proper and effective policy making. A big data is an extremely large set of data that may be analyzed computationally in order to reveal patterns, trends, and association, especially relating to human behavior and interactions. And according to Wikipedia, much IT investment is going towards managing and maintaining big data. A widely accepted definition of big data is given by the Gartner in 2013, who defines the big data as as a high volume, high velocity, high variety of information assets that demand cost-effective, innovative forms of information processing for enhanced insight decision-making and process optimization. So a big data is a general term that actually defines a massive amount of digital data being generated from different sources. Extremely very large and very huge. Structured and unstructured data, too much conflict to process for analysis through conventional relational databases. So according to Rosen in 2011, provided a similar definition to Gartner's idea with emphasis on volume, variety, velocity, but with an additional important concept that is the value and variety of data. So here we can see from this diagram the characteristic of big data. We have what you call the variety, the volume, the velocity, the value, and of course, the velocity. So what do we mean by volume? The volume of the data in big data concept, when we talk of volume, we are referring to the huge amount of information that is being processed as a big data. So this involves the records, the architecture, the transactions to be processed, the tables, files, queries in the databases. When we are talking of the velocity in terms of big data, we are referring to the batch processing, real-time processing of the data, the processes and the streams of information that can be generated from big data. Then we're talking of variety too. This has to do with the structured and unstructured factors and probabilities that normally arises within the structured and unstructured databases. And when we talk of the veracity of the data, we are actually referring to the integrity of the data. How the data, the authenticity of the data, the origin of the data, the availability of the data, the accountability of the data. So now we have an idea of what a big data is. Now what are the problems to be addressed in relation to the Nigerian economy? So the major challenge faced by the Nigerian government is to find a solution on how to properly collect the citizen data and make use of the great opportunities that is provided by the ICT in order to provide good services to its people, and of course to improve the condition of the entire population. Another problem is the lack of national framework that will guide government development of e-government projects and integrate them at various levels of development. Another problem is the lack of proper ICT regulations. The ICT should provide the government on efficient and effective resource management in order to serve the citizens and the stakeholders via electronic government, namely the e-government policies in very simple, realistic way. So, we have several sources of data that is emerging from our Nigerian economy. So how do we harness this data in order to make it, So we have different sources of data that is coming from our Nigerian economy. Look at it, we have something like National Bureau of Statistics, we have Federal Road Safety, we have National Identity Commission, National Population Commission. All these are huge amount of data that are coming from different sectors of our economy. So the question arises, how do we harness this data so that we have an integrated or general framework that will coordinate and manage this huge amount of data we have. So these challenges, as already mentioned, we need to have an enabling environment for big data analysis to look at local, state, and of course at federal government or at federal level. So through big data analytic framework, the information that is generated or gathered from various sources can now be harnessed and monitored.
Please round up, sir. Please round up, sir.
Suggested initiatives. Now the government should design a general data analytic framework to collect data at local and state level and national levels respectively, and the framework should provide functionalities such as for data organization and management, data analytics and discovery, data visualization and reporting, decision support system, building suitable ICT infrastructure for long-term investment in e-government, human and capital development. The government should also provide a regulatory policy on effective data governance and mechanism to handle the data properly. And government should also ensure security and integrity and privacy of the collected data. Now here we have a proposal, excuse me. Here we have a proposal, yes, you can see it, on how to come out with the conceptual model in order to implement a big data for e-government. As you can see here, we have the data source, we have data that is coming from different sources, and of course here we have the processing unit, where we can have a warehouse where a huge amount of data can be stored. We have the institution, that is sectors of the government, that can provide or generate this amount of data. And of course, we have the data. Excuse me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that presentation. And I'm sure that by the end of this presentation, we are going to have the soft copy of most of these presentations so that we can digest some of these presentations. It's a very good presentation, but you didn't have enough time to relay. We want to thank you for that. And let me just call my sister to come and give the last presentation. And I want to advise her just give it in 6 minutes. And during the question time, you may want to expatiate further on what you are unable to say here, because we are going to wrap up this session by 6 o'clock. So, 6 minutes. Your time starts now.
Six minutes is even too much. As okay, so good evening to you all. So I'm going to represent Dr. Amina Sombo. So the slides are prepared by her, and representing a doctor is not easy. So I'll try my best to see if I can fit into what she is capable of delivering. So data analytics to make intelligent decisions. This is the main purpose of using data. Because we have the proliferation of data coming from different devices and from different angles. As it said, a recent study found out that we create almost 2.5 million quintillion bytes of data, but it's worthless if not analyzed. Government today have access to different kind of data. The NCC has access to that. A lot of government organizations have access to that, and they are sitting under it. So however, just gathering the data is not enough, but we have to create a positive impact on that data for national development. Data needs to analyze and transform and be transformed. So as the other panelist has already defined the what big data is. Big data for development is about turning the imperfect data, coming unstructured from pictures, sounds, and other angles, and then changing it to an actionable information. So any data that is being gathered, if it is not transformed and analyzed, then it's just a data that is not useful, or an information that is not useful. So there are a lot of opportunities that comes with this. So this is by producing insight for business process re-engineering and transformation of data for government. I can say, like, now that there are a lot of projects are coming up, just give an example from the agricultural sector, where several projects are being initiated by the government to talk about boost the agricultural sector. So, but then coming up with so many data, if the government is creating these policies to help these farmers, if data is being used, then it will solve a lot of problem, because you can see if they analyze that, okay, the farming of rice takes place in Hadejia, and it's the soil there, understanding the soil, understanding the nature of the people there, understanding everything and gathering those data, and then giving them all the necessary support from that data that has been gathered from that particular area. Then the benefit of data analytics has been achieved. But just by giving them what they don't need, by providing them and telling them to start producing maybe maize or something that is not useful around that area, because we have not used the data to understand their demands and needs. If you come to the health sector and you try to see how data is useful in that aspect, is when you try to give medications to maybe a region. Within that specific region, there's so much demand that comes from that region. But you decided to be giving them malaria aid instead of when they have issues of typhoid or all that. So the data has to be gathered, and it comes from different sources, right from the people. So it has to be holistic, and it has to be analyzed. So producing insights for business process and re-engineering can transform the government. Generating business analytics for significant improvement of online information. A lot of people are posting information on their social media channels, and this can also help in helping the government to create strategic solution that would be beneficial to the right target of people. So utilizing real-time information for adaptive and personalized e-government experiences, because the essence of the more reason about data analytics is just to serve the people rightly. So tracking and visualizing the data for government performance and for dynamic participatory for public decision making. So these are all the opportunities that data analytics poses for the government to use. So, but then even with all these opportunities that it gives, as I said earlier, in terms of helping with the agricultural sector or the healthcare sector, still there are a lot of challenges that comes with it. So that's the privacy issues. A lot of people are giving out their information, but they are really worried on how secure is that the information they are giving the person that is going to use the data. So there is a need for the government to come up with policies on how they are going to use those data that are given by citizens. And also the integration of multiple data sources and formats. This data comes in different formats and sources, as he has said earlier. So there is a need to educate and also to educate the users of this data to be able to analyze those data that comes from different data sets. And also the storage. Because usually what happens is when we try to acquire more data from different angles, we just keep it, or even there's no storage, we don't store it, and we just see it at that time, and then we leave it without analyzing it and translating it. So there is a need for us to have a structured place where those data are being kept for the purpose. Like in the US, they have this data.gov, where whenever there is a need for the data, for the techies that want to start developing an application, they can go there, access, and find out information, recent informations on that, and it's well analyzed, and then they can use it to produce what they need to produce. So linkage and agreements between organizations for personalization. Usually all these parastatals have different data with them. So if there is a linkage between all these, as the NIDA already are working on the interoperability framework, so they can come up with that will also solve this interlinkage agreement. So from her slide already, she has talked about the e-government interoperability framework by NIDA, which is being created to harmonize the data. And also, like for the digital literacy, this is also one of the actions they are taking, because I have seen that when NIDA wanted to start a capacity building for women, they had to conduct a research, and then they gather data on the needs and demands of those women. After they gather the data, they analyze it, and then they come up with a structured data that gives an insight on the needs of those women, and they give them the right training without giving them the training that they don't need. Maybe if that research has not been taken, maybe they would have been sat down to be taught on how, or maybe sat down to be taught on blockchain or all those advanced, but they understood their needs, and then they come up with the right data. So with all this, I think these are the things that they need to be considered in order to promote. I hope I delivered what the doctor was supposed to deliver.
I want to thank you for the presentation, and I think you spent your 7 minutes exactly. Thank you for that. You can see, gender sensitive. Thank you. So it is time for questions. We want to close by 6 o'clock. So just 4 questions. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, so please can you just come up and give your own presentation. If you can do it within 3 minutes, I trust you. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Prof. Since Prof has already said it's time to go, I'll be very brief. Good evening, DG, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ike Namani, CEO Medallion Communication. Data is what we do because we run data centers. And so a lot of the critical infrastructure that has enabled some of the institutions to operate well, we host a lot of those data in our data center. Now, why is data important for government and how does it enhance life? It's pretty much the difference between equity and equality. What data does is enable governments to operate in an equitable way, even if it's not equal. In other words, if we have resource to distribute, you have the option to distribute that resource equally based on the number of people available. Or if you have accurate data, then you can know those that need a specific amount and give them the amount they need, even if it's more or less than what the other party gets. That is equity. And we've seen that in life and in society, things are better managed and there's more sources if things operate under an equitable status than purely based on equality. And that is what data enables. Recently, we were called to assist a state government who had some issues with a solution that was already implemented. What was the problem? Another state implemented a similar solution and it worked perfectly well for them. So, based on reference of how successful it was, they invited the same vendor who came and implemented exactly the same solution for them, but it didn't work. The success rate was not even close. What is the difference between both? You are looking at 2 different behaviors from the citizens, which was not envisioned when the solution was implemented. In other words, not all cap fits all situation is reality in life. But if by the time we went in and did some analysis and actually went into scope the data, we found out that the 2 states had different behavior in terms of the services being offered. One state was, the citizens were more open to it based on their culture. In the second state, it was something majority of the citizens felt was against their religious belief. So implementing that solution was literally a no-go if there was data to be analyzed in the first case. And this just gives us simple examples of how life can be better or government can actually lose resources if you don't have accurate data to work with. Now, in the area I want to briefly conclude on, which is we've all discussed, and I think there's nobody here that doesn't understand there's a need to operate with accurate data. For starters, it has to be digital data. So I guess the starting point is that there must be steps taken to digitize every available data, both existing ones and new ones to be created. But more importantly, we have to be sure that there is accurate and adequate infrastructure to store this data safely and to store it locally. We had cases where recently there's been a lot of push to localize our content, our data, bring them back, and have local hosting of the various websites and services by the government. That is important because if you have digital data and it's not secured, then you are exposing your country to risk, especially in the area of cybersecurity. So that is one key area I think the government needs to look at. As we look at the benefits of digitizing our data, as we look at the benefits of generating more digital data, we must also be mindful of the potential risk that will come with it. And that is in the area of cybersecurity and in the area of having adequate facility in country to be able to host this data. Thank you.
I trust my brother. You've done it in 3 minutes. God bless you. So, distinguished colleagues, I think it's high time for us to ask questions. Let's limit it to 4. And we advise that when you are responding, you respond to those questions and also give your closing remarks so that we just wrap it up that way. Questions? Just 4 questions. Okay. Number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, my brother, 1, yeah. Oh, Mrs. Hassan. Dr. Mrs. Hassan.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I just think that we need, at this point, to understand 2 things. From the last speaker, I'm aware that there is integrated data center with Galaxy, and that may want to have a private integrated data center being hosted in Lagos or somewhere else, I don't know. But I think that that's very crucial for us, and looking at or listening to all the speakers, it's getting obvious that we, in a knowledge economy like Nigeria and what we are trying to push forward, we need to begin to consider evidence policy making in Nigeria. And that's lay credence to what Miriam spoke about on the gender.
Please go straight to your question.
So the question here is how much of the government institution we have around are actually doing evidence policy research. And that is very key for us to move forward. Because for us to take any decision, we must be able to lay indicators that are data gathering based. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2. Yeah, just go straight to your question.
My name is Engineer Salus Kaka from NIGDA. On issue of big data, globally the greatest challenge now is the rate at which this data is being generated. To the extent industry players, developed countries become overwhelmed, to the extent they tend to lose track in trying to analyze this data and get meanings out of it. To a third country like Nigeria, it's a question to everyone there. How do you think we will not fall victim of these circumstances? What I mean, what infrastructure do we need to adequately put in place to ensure that at least the data we generate will not at the end of the day make us more devastated than we were before? Because if we fail to analyze and read meaning out to it, and this data keep on coming to the extent we becomes overwhelmed, we end up being worse than we were before.
Thank you.
Clear.
Question 3. Question 3.
I am Labaran Rogers Ibn from FC Zaria. I consider the 5V mentioned by Dr. Abba from ATB Bauchi, considering the volume, the variety, the value too. I entertain fear in the sense that data shareability is a key to enhancing government administration and service delivery. My fear here is that how can government guarantee the sharing of data? Is there transboundary policy? Do we have the equipment on ground considering the 5V mentioned by Dr. Abba? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The last question. I thought I saw another hand. Okay. The last question. Oh, my brother. Go straight to your question.
Yeah.
No lecture.
No lecture.
Question.
Thank you very much. I just want to find out if they are aware that the government is making effort as far as what this data integrations. Because if you refer to NIMSI, you understand, I think there is a serious progress in that direction.
Thank you. So, back to the panelists. I'll just give you 1 minute. Respond to the questions, and then you give your closing remarks. Let me just start from my doctor here.
Hello? Thank you. Yes, Nigeria is a country that is producing data every second. And this data has to be harmonized, analyzed, and utilized appropriately by government. Unfortunately, data misuse and data breach, data abuse is common and rampant in our society. That is why any policy that is made or decision that is reached may end up deceptive and misleading. So there is need for a framework or model to be established by an institution to be created or agency that may be called or named as citizen generated data agency. The voice of the people are the data that is not in the hands of the government. That is the voice of the people. And if the government want to make rightful decisions and planning and policies, there has to be a complement of the government data by the citizens generated data. If this is absent, we may continue roaming without having a target. So there is need for the stakeholders and the government to sit down and map out an algorithm or a framework under a regulatory or controlling agency that may be called citizens generated data, that will be matching, sorting, synthesizing, synchronizing, and try to bring out the relevant data that is generated from the citizens. And that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So let me move. Doc?
Okay. If I understand the question very well, the question normally asks about data integrity as in relation to the 4 characteristics of the big data. Now, what I'm trying to say here is there is huge amount of data that is generated every day from different sectors of our economy. Now, this data need to be managed, need to be organized, need to be structured, need to be kept in data centers. For example, data are generated from local governments, state governments, up to national level. So there is the need to have what we call data centers at local, state, and national level, so that this data can be harnessed and organized and structured and stored in the data banks. Now, another important issue is the security and privacy of the data. We generated a huge amount of more data, but how are we sure our data is secure? So in order to secure the data, then we need to provide what we call a cyber security framework. Let's take, for example, in South Korea, because they have a fully implemented e-government policy, they have an agency which is called KISA, that is Korea Internet Security Agency. All citizen data are monitored and controlled by this agency. So whenever there is a threat, it is the responsibility of this agency to manage and coordinate and counterattack any threat that is coming either internally or locally. So data privacy is very, very important in protecting our data.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I say, as a recommendation, so the federal government of Nigeria should actually collaborate with countries that have already advanced in terms of data management and protection, like, for example, in Korea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Iwa, your comments?
So, such as how much data can be processed, or how much we can accumulate, it's what we can do with the data, right? So, and that's why earlier on I advocated for us to have a strong focus on igniting an API economy. Because if you look around, all the startups and young, talented boys and girls who come around here, one of the best tools you can give to them now is platform, to develop APIs to solve problems, the kind of problems that we are seeing in the public sector, and so on. So to answer Dr. Wumi's question about the practice of evidence-based decision making, I think this is what would encourage it. If we don't have the data, either as a primary source or a platform that can be used to generate additional value, then it will be difficult for public sector practitioners to carry out evidence-based decision making. All right. So that's where I think that this focus should be. I've been practicing big data analytics for over 5 years, and I think we are getting it right in Nigeria. NIDA as an institution is leading the way in terms of providing the framework, for that, not just in that area, but data generally. Because one thing we need to know, it is not whether we want to process this data or whether we want to accumulate it. The fact is that every day we generate data. We are now the data exhaust. As long as we continue to use devices, we are the production agents of data, right? And two, this data is not necessarily in the custody of government. It's not. So the key thing for Nigeria is the regulatory framework, because this data is there. It's in the hands of businesses, right? It's in the hands of everybody, the data network operators and so on, right? And they can use it, but government needs to step in and say, okay, we want to use it for public good. And that's the perspective I'd like to leave here.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kechuku.
Yeah, thanks. I think sometime last month there was an open data stakeholders forum that took place in Enugu for 2 to 3 days. And I believe there's another one that's supposed to take place in the northeast or northwest in due time. I don't know if that has been scheduled. But the purpose of that was to start creating or reviewing the framework for managing big data on an open form by the government. So I believe as long as such initiatives are pursued to, conclusion, then we shouldn't have a problem as a country because we've already seen this and we're already working towards it. The second part is, and I think it's important we leave this gathering not being afraid of big data, because I've heard somebody says, oh, what happens if this becomes too much for us to manage? The truth is today, Facebook, Google, some of these private companies are managing more data on a daily basis that we probably would create in another few years, given our population and size. So if they can manage it, we should not be afraid. It's important we understand that there are technology and solutions to manage this. And what we really need, as they've said, is proper regulations to guide how this is done. And then the private sector and, of course, the government entities involved also would create the infrastructure to make this happen. But I don't think we should leave this gathering with that concern about, oh, this is so big, how do we no. There is technology and solution, and already private companies are doing this on a daily basis. So it's not something we can't handle.
Thank you. Miriam.
Okay, so being the last person, I think they have all answered all the questions, and what I would say is data is oil, and we should not underestimate the power of data, that everyone here now, when he leaves this place, should start working on how he's going to use data to make decisions, not just go ahead and make decision without using data. It is very vital to use it. So that's all I'll say.
I want to thank you for the response to those questions. Can we put our hands together for them? Just 1 minute information. The director, Dr. Usman.
Thank you very much, moderator. I think Ben, my colleague Ben, and Ikechukwu have already mentioned what I wanted to mention. Because the most important thing is for us to not to get away from here, with the impression that government is not doing anything about data. There are a number of initiatives that NIDA is working on. I mean, the data protection guideline is there that is to be issued. Data classification is there. Interoperability framework is there. So there are a number of initiatives help towards perfecting that. Most of these initiatives have already through series of steps. So just as Ikechukwu said, there's nothing to fear. The regulator is at work, and be rest assured that the regulator will do all it can to make sure actually is the way forward, and we are working on it. Thank you very much. I hope that.
Thank you, sir, for that information assignment given to us. So on behalf of the panel organizing committee, for giving us the opportunity to be part of this program this evening to present our own ideas. And I want to suggest that if you have other information, ideas regarding this topic, please don't hesitate to forward it to the local organizing committee to form part of their communique by the end of this program. Once again, I want to thank you for listening to us. and we wish you the best. Can we just put our hands together again for... And then you can clap for me too as the moderator of the session. Thank you and God bless you. Oh, MC is here. So you wrap up.
Thank you, sir. Please, can we have the group photograph of the panelists for this session? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for staying with us to the end of day one. We would like to apologize for taking out the pitching sessions because we know that most people, especially the techies among us, we're actually looking forward to more of those innovations from our young startups. Due to time constraints, we have had to move their presentations or their pitchings to tomorrow. So tomorrow if we get better tomorrow, better than today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for staying with us to the end of today's program. And remember that tomorrow we have the annual dinner and awards night, and we'll expect to see you there. Mr. Chairman, sir, Mr. DG, sir, I respectfully ask permission to close today's event. The permission has been granted. Ladies and gentlemen, the event is closed for today. See you tomorrow at 9. And remember,
But I need you, would you come tonight? Would you not believe me? Cause a love that easy never turns out right. I'm trying to change the rules, you deserve something good in your life. We waited for far too long, so come get your blessings tonight.
DY